What's going on? My name's Jay, and today we're talking about frame rates and why 24 frames per second might not be the best option for your video. Let's take a look. One of the things that confused the crap out of me when I first started making videos was frame rates. I knew nothing about what each frame rate meant. I didn't know what frame rate I should use. I knew absolutely nothing. In fact, almost all of my original videos were shot in 60 frames per second. They were edited in a 60 frame per second timeline. They were exported at 60 frames per second. And it wasn't the look I was going for, but that's kind of all I knew. I knew that 60 frames per second gave you like more detail and it was smoother and all that. So it's just what I did. I didn't know any better. It wasn't until like a few months later that I started learning about 24 frames per second, 30 frames, 60, 120, all that stuff, and started figuring out what all of those things meant and where to use them, and I started just, learning stuff. So in an effort to hopefully save you some time, let's take a look at the different frame rates, what frame rates actually are, and where you can use them. Now, in order to understand what frame rate means, we actually have to take a look at what exactly a video is. I know it sounds dumb, just bear with me. This is all gonna make sense in a second. Technically, a video is just a series of still frames stitched together to make a moving picture, which, by the way, is what films were called back in the day. So if a video is just a series of still frames, then frame rate is just the measure of how many still frames are in 1 second of video. So 24 frames per second means there's 24 still frames in 1 second of video. 60 frames per second is 60 frames in 1 second of video, and 120, you get the idea. Now, somewhere along the line, it became common knowledge that in order to get a cinematic look, you need to shoot in 24 frames per second, and then if you wanted to do slow motion, you could shoot in 60 or 120. I'm not gonna go into the whole how higher frame rates mean slower footage thing, but if you do wanna learn about that, Is Harris did a video a while ago, but it's absolutely brilliant. I'll link it below so you can check it out. But the thing is, 24 frames per second isn't always the best frame rate to use. Now, even in films, like if you're going for an old-timey feel, if you're doing like maybe an old black and white, and you want it to feel like it was made back in the 1920s or even earlier, you're gonna wanna shoot at like 16 frames per second. And those old animated, those like hand-drawn things, Snow White and stuff like that, those were 12 frames per second. Even in modern movies, fight scenes a lot of times are filmed at like 21 or 22 frames per second to seem a little bit more, snappy, and it's actually really cool. If you want to know an example, go watch the Sherlock Holmes movies, the ones with Robert Downey Jr. Those fight scenes were all filmed in like 21, 22 frames per second, and they look absolutely brilliant. But by far my favorite example of not using 24 frames per second and still getting a cinematic experience is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Those actually kind of made headlines in the film industry for filming at 48 frames per second. And even outside of the movie world, 24 frames per second isn't always the way to go. Most TV shows are actually shot in 30 frames per second. Commercials usually use kind of a higher frame rate, 60, 120, stuff like that. And when you start talking about like science and nature shows, those are shot at a super high frame rate so they can slow the footage down and you can actually see what's going on. So what's the point of this video? Why am I sharing this information with you? Is it just to make the, 24 frames per second fanboys like just angry? No, it's not that at all. I just want to let you know that it's okay to not do something that everybody says is the right way. This is your art. This is your video. And like I've said a million different times, everything creative is subjective. So go choose the frame rate that gives you the look you're going for and go make something. Now, that being said, there's some things that you can do in order to get good looking footage no matter what frame rate you choose. And one of those things is exposing your shots correctly. If you want to learn more about that, watch this video right here. And if you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about video editing, camera gear, and how to make better videos, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next video. Go watch it now.